I once sat in an empty room, broke, with a child in my arms and a stack of bills on the table. And then I told myself, this is not the end. This is a turning point. You see, in every collapse, there is a hidden opportunity. But you will only see it when you stop feeling sorry for yourself. In this video, I will show how I went through crises myself and what you can do to make every pain your teacher. Also, at the end, we will work together on a simple daily practice of turning difficulties into strength. So stay tuned, subscribe, and let's go. In a world where everyone strives to avoid pain, true growth is born precisely from it. That's the paradox. We all want a good life, less stress, more peace, stability. But here's the thing, life's biggest breakthroughs don't happen when everything is going smoothly. They happen when it hurts, when you've been stopped, when your plans fall apart. And that's when, instead of collapsing, you grow. If you don't give up, I know this well, because I've been there. At 25, I was a broke man with a family, no prospects. And if I had waited for better circumstances, I'd still be sitting in the same place. But one thought saved me, simple and relentless. If you want life to change, change yourself first. And from that moment, everything, even my failures, became my teacher. Statistics say that during the Great Depression of the 1930s, more people became millionaires than ever before. How is that possible? A crisis, and at the same time, a rise. The thing is, in hard times, hidden opportunities emerge. When everyone is afraid, the strong take action. When pain paralyzes some, it awakens others. And that's where the real game begins. Not the external one, but the internal. People often ask me, Jim, how did you get through failures? How did you not lose faith when everything was falling apart? I always answer the same thing. I didn't wait for the storm to pass. I learned to dance in the rain. Because it's precisely when the soul is in its darkest place that true light is born, your light. You start to see what you're capable of, and that's the starting point. Not after the crisis, but right in it. Maybe right now you're going through a tough time yourself, and I'll tell you this, that's okay, but staying there is not. In this video, we'll explore how to turn difficulties into a springboard, how to find not a threat but a chance in crisis, and how to see that your story isn't over. It's just gaining momentum. Everything starts with philosophy, your internal map, with how you see the world. Because if you see difficulties as punishment, you hide. But if you see a hidden gift in them, you step forward. That's the breaking point. Because life doesn't ask when it's convenient for you. It doesn't warn. It simply throws a challenge. And that's the moment of truth, because crisis doesn't create a person. It only reveals who you already are. I often said, don't ask for an easy life. Ask for more skills. See, a crisis is not a challenge to the economy, but to your skills. Not to the situation, but to your discipline. And the greatest victory is not in avoiding difficulties. It's in going through them and becoming someone who is no longer afraid of a repeat. I remember my first year after meeting Earl Shoff. I was broke, deep in debt, but for the first time in my life, I felt an inner movement. I still had no money, but I already had a different language, different thoughts, a different approach. And right then, when the bills were piling up, I started investing in books. Not in a TV, not in vacations, in books. That's when I told myself, I will no longer live by reacting. I will live by shaping. And that's when my rise began. Not because everything around me changed. Things were still hard. But I changed. I began to invest in myself because I told myself, as long as I'm alive, I can change. And if I change, everything will change. This is the core principle. In every crisis, there are two possible scenarios. The first, you become a victim. You blame, lose faith, retreat into doubt. And life, like a clock, starts counting backward. The second, you become a student. You don't ask, why did this happen? You ask, what can I take from this? And that's when growth begins. Remember the story of Edwin Barnes, which I've often mentioned in my talks. He wanted to work with Edison, but he had no money, no connections. Only one thing, determination and faith. He didn't wait for the perfect moment. He took a freight train to New Jersey with nothing and said to Edison, I've come to become your partner. Oh, he didn't become a partner right away. First, small tasks, dust, grime, but he didn't quit. And one day, when Edison needed someone to sell a dictation machine, Barnes was ready because he was in the game. And he became that very partner he had seen himself as, even before anyone else did. Here's what I'll tell you. In a crisis, the winner isn't the most talented. It's the one who is the most prepared on the inside. Because the moment life presses you, the real stuff comes out. And if you're filled only with fear and the habit of complaining, that's what will show. But if you filled yourself with discipline, faith, skills, that's what will save you. How do you do it? Start small, every day. When it's hard, write down what you're learning. When everything's falling apart, take just one right action. Call someone, read something, listen to something. Because, as I've said, every discipline affects the others. Every rejection of a bad habit is a step toward freedom. I'm not talking about theories here, I'm talking about reality. About that day when you're sitting in a room and it feels like everything's over, but instead of giving up, you say, all right, I'm still breathing. I still have a choice, so I'm starting again. And that, my friend, is where survival ends and a new life begins. We often ask ourselves, why me? Why now? Why does it hurt so much? But there's a question more powerful than all of these. Who do I need to become so this no longer breaks me? That's the essence. Because when life puts pressure on you, it's not just testing your endurance. It's inviting you to become someone else. Stronger, deeper, more real. I often said, everything that happens shapes you. The question is, what exactly is being shaped? If you let difficulties only break you, you lose. But if you let them build you, you grow. Not instantly, not easily, but inevitably. When I first started sharing my experience on stages, I wasn't yet famous, but I knew who I wanted to be. I didn't have status, I didn't have titles, but I had a story. I wasn't talking about success from a magazine cover, but about cold mornings in Idaho when you wake up not knowing how you'll feed your family. And that's what people felt, because it was real. In my early talks, I shared how I sat in the kitchen and heard the words, "Jim, you're an adult now. You're 25 and you have nothing. What are you going to do about it?" And that truth, that rawness, became my strength. Because I didn't pretend everything was fine. I showed how you can grow from nothing into something. One time at a seminar, a young man came up to me, eyes shining but his voice trembling. "Mr. Rohn, I just lost my business. I put everything into it and failed. I don't know who I am anymore." I looked at him and said, "Oh, my friend, then you're just at the beginning. Because when you don't know who you are, you get to choose. You're a blank page now. Write what you were once afraid to write." Difficulties aren't just trials, they're a cleansing. They strip away everything false. They reveal who is real inside you. And that's when real transformation begins. Because you can choose to remain the old version of yourself that couldn't handle the pressure, or create a new one. And that new one no longer fears loss, because it has already walked through it. Look at the stories that inspire us. They're all about falling, but even more about rising. Abraham Lincoln lost elections multiple times, lost his love, failed in business, and yet he became president. Why? Because he didn't break. Because he turned every blow into a step up. He didn't try to return to the old self. He built a new one. One of my favorite metaphors is gold. You know how they test if it's real? With fire. You won't know the strength of the metal until you heat it to the limit. Same with a person. Your crisis is that very fire, and it will show if you're real. And if you are, it will also purify you. I remember the moment when my income finally surpassed all my debts. I could breathe, but I didn't relax. I knew this isn't the end. It's a test. Will I fall back into the habits of my old self? Because as soon as success comes, the temptation to relax comes too. And that's when you must remember who you became during the storm. Difficulties don't just teach you how to work. They teach you how to be. Be honest, be strong, be disciplined. And when that new identity becomes your nature, everything external begins to shift automatically. As I always said, success is not something you pursue, it's something you become. And one more thing, very important. If you've gone through a crisis, help someone else. Because true transformation doesn't end when you walk out of the fire, but when you extend a hand to someone still in it. That is strength. That is leadership. That is life. I often said, when the storm comes, some build walls, others build windmills. And you see, the difference isn't in strength, it's in mindset, because the storm is the same for everyone. But some hide, and others harness it. Pain can become either your curse or your source. That's your choice. There are people who live for years in the shadow of an old wound. They replay the same scene in their head again and again. One failure, one unfair moment, and each time that memory steals a little of their strength. Because the pain remained raw, unprocessed, undigested. But there are others, those who took pain and turned it into fuel. I know such people, and I was one of them. That morning when I couldn't buy my little girl a cookie, it still lives in me. Not as shame, but as a driver, every time I'm tired, when I don't feel like it. When I want to stop, I remember that day, not to punish myself, but to remind myself where I came from and why I keep going. Because pain is not the end, it's a source. If you allow yourself to go through it consciously, to look it in the eye, to turn it into a lesson, it's like muscles. You don't grow them through comfort, but through micro-trauma, and those who endure become stronger, and those who avoid remain the same. I want you to think back to your most recent crisis. Maybe it was a failed business, maybe the loss of a relationship, maybe illness, something that knocked you off track. And now, think, what did it give you? Not take, but give. I'm sure it gave you something. Maybe a lesson in patience. Maybe clarity about who your real friends are. Maybe the push to change direction. That's your fuel. You store it. It doesn't disappear. It waits for you to start using it. And when you set off on a new path, you're not starting from zero. You carry all your experience, all your scars, all your mistakes. But now, as a resource, not as a burden. I knew a man who lost everything. His business, his home, even his family. He hit rock bottom. But instead of giving up, he started writing. Not for publication, for himself. Every day, 3 pages, about pain, about fear, about hope. Within a year, he had written a book. It didn't become a bestseller, but it changed him. Because the pain that lived inside him found a voice, and no longer tore him apart from within. You see, we either run from pain, and it chases us, or we turn back toward it, and it becomes part of our wisdom. That's why I always emphasized, don't avoid the struggle, because it's in the struggle that your strength is born. Picture yourself 5 years from now. What happens if you don't give up today? What happens if today's pain becomes the foundation of your character? What if this very crisis makes you into who you're meant to be? You don't know how everything will unfold, but you do know who you can become. And when you begin to act from that place of strength, from that new identity, the world changes, not immediately, but inevitably, because the world always responds to your inner posture. I said, the world doesn't pay for desire, it pays for results, and results always come from inner work. And when you've gone through the storm, not just survived, but came out of it with a lesson, when you're no longer looking for the easy road, but for what within you can be refined, that's when life begins to repay you with interest. Now I want you to pause, just for a minute. No rush. Put your phone down, close the other tabs, just be here. Because this isn't just a video, it's a mirror. And it's not showing me, it's showing you. We've already walked through 3 big ideas: how challenges shape character, how they build a new identity, and how pain can become your fuel. But knowing this isn't enough. You have to ask yourself, how does this apply to me personally? I want you to answer 5 questions honestly, on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 means, I completely ignore this in my life, and 10 means, I live it every day. Answer without sugarcoating. For yourself, write down those numbers. Right now, on paper or in your notes. It matters. Because what's written down starts to work. First, how calmly do I face challenges? Do I react with panic or do I act with dignity? Second, how much has my identity strengthened after my last crisis? Or am I still clinging to my old self? Third, how much do I use my pain as a resource? Or do I hide it, avoid it, and let it rule me from the shadows? Fourth, how consistently do I take action daily, regardless of circumstances? Or am I waiting for motivation, a sign, a green light? And fifth, how much do I live with an internal mission, rather than just reacting to the outside world? Now look at those numbers. Which one is the lowest? That's your weak spot. And that's not a reason for shame. That's your growth point. That's where your attention needs to go this week. Not everything at once. Just one thing. Because, as I've said, every discipline affects the others. Change one, and the rest will follow. So choose that one area and make a simple 7-day action plan. Just one action. If it's pain, write 10 lines each day about what it's teaching you. If it's action, do one task each day, no matter how small, regardless of how you feel. If it's mission, every morning write your answer to, "Why am I waking up today?" And now, share your experience. Write in the comments which of your answers was the lowest and what you decided to do about it. I'm not asking for stats, I'm asking for you, because when you write, you lock in your intention, and when someone else sees it, you create accountability. And one more thing, if this video helped you see your crisis differently, don't forget to hit like. It helps me know I wasn't just speaking into the void. And of course, subscribe, because there's so much more ahead that will help you not just survive, but consciously build your life day by day. And remember, change doesn't start on Monday. It starts with a decision, and you can make that decision right now. And here's what I want you to take with you from this video. You are stronger than you think. Not because you've never fallen, but because you're still here, and you're still listening, and you're still searching. That means there's a fire in you, and it hasn't gone out. Hardships are not proof of your defeat. They are an invitation to build another version of yourself, one that didn't just survive the storm, one that learned to dance in the rain. I always said, don't let your difficulties become your excuse. Make them your source of wisdom, because in the end, everything that happens to you can work for you. If you learn to work on yourself, sometimes life brings us to our knees, but that's exactly where we begin to pray. That's where we see the sky, and that's where a new strength is born. Not flashy, not loud, but deep and steady. Remember, your story isn't over yet. The pages are still blank, and the pen is in your hands. Write it in a way that others will one day draw inspiration from it, and so that when you look back, you'll say, "Oh, that wasn't just a crisis, that was my rebirth."